rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world, and then shall the end come.
Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?
Here's today's prophecy update. Two terrorists disguised themselves as religious Jews and ordered lunch in a crowded Tel Aviv mall. When the time was right, the terrorists opened fire with automatic weapons, leaving 4 people dead and many more were wounded. Some people are blaming the Palestinians for the latest carnage. Others are saying it would not have happened if it weren't for the Israeli occupation of Palestinian lands. The vexing conflict between Israel and her Arab neighbors has now been raging for over 70 years. Will it ever end? The Bible prophesies that it will end, but not until there is much, much more bloodshed. The final act in this long-standing dispute will be the apocalyptic Battle of Armageddon. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is Open Line. It's your day. We will be taking your calls on the program today. The number to call to be on the air with myself and Jim Stiglman is 877-END-TIME. That's 877-363-8463. To reach our operators, that number is 800-END-TIME. We would love to hear from you today. This is your day. So you're welcome to start calling at any time. We're going to do a brief recap of where we've been this week. However, before we do, I want to remind you I will be in Jeffersonville, Indiana this evening. That's where I'm broadcasting from right now. And we will be speaking tonight on America's God-given destiny. To me, this is one of the most urgent things that people need to hear right now, because the Bible not only prophesies about the United States in Scripture, but it also tells us what's going to happen between now and the Battle of Armageddon and the role that America is going to play. Because we're all Americans, of course, at least those of you that are not listening from overseas, it becomes very urgent for all of us to know what's coming, because America's God-given destiny is intertwined with our personal destinies. So once we know America's God-given destiny, we know the role that we should play. For all of you that could make it to the conference, and there's not a shortage of time to plan even yet, the conference will be held this evening at Kai's Ballroom. That's KYE''S Ballroom, 500 Missouri Avenue, Jeffersonville, Indiana. It will be at 7:30 this evening. Everyone is welcome to attend. There is no admission charge. A free will offering will be taken. I hope all of you can make it. I know many of you may be 2, 3, 4 hours away. Well, you're welcome. There's going to be plenty of time. So make your way down here right now. We'll have a great conference this evening. I look forward to seeing you. Now, as we go forward, I'm having a few technical difficulties, which sometimes when you're operating remote, that's easy for that to happen. So what I'd like to do is ask all of you to go ahead and start calling. Jim is going to be anchoring the program back there, and I'm going to try to hook up so I can see your calls. I don't know whether I'm able to do that yet or not. Actually, it looks like I can do that. So that's wonderful news. So right now, let me recap just a moment while all of you are dialing what we went over this week. On Monday, we talked about the conclusion of the Paris summit that some people thought would budge the negotiations between the Palestinians and the Israelis, budget off-center, bump it off-center, and move it to a UN resolution. However, the United States apparently blocked that from happening, not wanting the world community to tell Israel what she must do, but it's pushed this back, hopefully, to negotiations again. However, the people in Paris, France are not giving up. They're hoping to continue to push because they believe that negotiations between the Palestinians and the Israelis have reached a dead-end street. Therefore, they think the international community must intervene in order to get anything done. So it's going to be very interesting to watch even as the rest of this year unfolds, because President Obama would love to put in his legacy that he did something that finally resulted in a Palestinian-Israeli peace agreement. Don't expect it to happen this year. It just looked like there's too many roadblocks in the way. Then on Tuesday, the subject was the Pope's outreach to Protestants. 2016 is going to be a huge year. The Pope is planning on speaking at the biggest ecumenical gathering this year in 2016. And then 2017, of course, is the 500th anniversary of the nailing of the 95 Theses to the door of the church at Wittenberg, Germany by Martin Luther. They hope to declare the Protestant Reformation over at that time. So we're living in very unbelievable and important prophecy territory. On Wednesday, we talked about the rebirth of the Holy Roman Empire, and in particular, we focused on the resurgence of Germany at the heart of the European Union, and we proved that the European Union is, in fact, the rebirth of the Holy Roman Empire, which, by the way, is prophesied in the Bible. And the reason this is so of utmost importance is because the Bible prophesies that both the Antichrist and the false prophet will come from the reborn Holy Roman Empire. Well, the Holy Roman Empire was reborn on November the 3rd of 2009 and now continues to gain strength. A lot going on in Bible prophecy. And then finally, yesterday, we went to the chapter devoted to Satan's plans for the end time, chapter number 13 of the book of Revelation, where it prophesies about the coming one world government and the leader of that world government, the Antichrist. And then verse 11 through 15 of chapter 13 talks about the one world religion and the leader of that world religion, the false prophet. And then finally, verses 16 through 18 talks about their means of enforcing their will upon the people of the world, the program called The Mark of the Beast. All of that is contained in one chapter, chapter number 13. It's easy to remember because 13 is sort of repeated to be Satan's number. Well, let me tell you, his program is outlined in detail. The entire 13th chapter of Revelation is devoted to all that. So we've covered a huge amount of territory this weekend. There's so many other things we did not get to. However, this is your day. Consequently, we are going to get to the phones right now. So, Jim, are you there with me?
I'm right here. 1-877-END-TIME is our on-air number, 1-877-363-8463 to talk to Irvin. And let's start today's show out in Kentucky with Joe. You're first up.
Yes, Brother Baxter. I was wondering, what is China in the Bible, or if it's in the book of Revelation?
I do not believe that China is specifically in the Bible unless it's Revelation 9, verse 16. There it states, in the coming Sixth Trumpet War, sometimes we refer to that as the Euphrates River War or World War III, it does prophesy there will be an army of 200 million soldiers that will participate in that war that will end up killing one-third of the human race. Mao Zedong, the late leader of China, did boast in his diary that China had an adequate population to field an army of 200 million. He boasted the exact number. Now, there are only three entities on the earth that could make that boast: China, India, and now then the Islamic world. There are 1.6 billion Muslims, so they have an adequate population. Nevertheless, that may well be referring to China. However, besides that, we know that one-third of mankind will die. China has 1.3 billion population. Well, the one-third would be 2.4 billion. So if all of China were wiped out in this war, which I suspect could well happen, then there would still have to be another 1 billion die in addition to China. So that's the only reference I see to China. I think China will undoubtedly play a role in the coming war the horrible war that's going to kill 1/3 of mankind.
Okay. I was doing some research the other day, and I was watching some documentary on the internet, and I don't know why it's this, brother, but they said that the American government has done this, and also China for some reason has done this. But China turned around and started looking for in their population for people with extraordinary abilities. And I dig in some more, and I found out that they wanted to find people with psychic abilities and stuff like that. They said they found about 100,000, most of them children. And among those 100,000, they found a girl that could wave her hand over flowers, and they would bloom automatically. Now, I thought that kind of power would be reserved for born-again Christians and not, non-believers. Now, do you think this kind of power comes from God or comes from somewhere else?
Well, Joe, first of all, those reports obviously would have to be verified and verified again, because as you know, you can read about anything on the internet. We do know, though, from the book of Revelation, chapter 13, that the false prophet will do many signs and lying wonders, so much so that he will pull down fire from heaven in the sight of men. So Satan has a certain level of power. We do know that the magicians of Pharaoh back in the Old Testament times, in the days of Moses, they were able to turn their sticks into snakes. The problem was Moses turned his into a snake, and his snake ate the other snakes. So God's power is obviously greater, but there are times, the Bible predicts specifically the Antichrist will do many signs and lying wonders. So I couldn't write it off. At the same time, I would really want to verify those reports before I actually took them as fact. Listen, Joe, we got a lot of people lined up behind you, so I'm going to let you go right now. Thank you very much for your call. I appreciate it. And Jim, let's get back to you.
All right, let's go now to Indiana and Marvin. You're next up on End of the Age.
Hey, Brother Baxter, how are you doing today?
I'm wonderful, Marvin. Nice to hear from you.
I have a question, and then I'll hang up and let you answer. Hillary Clinton has broken some laws, and she should be held accountable for them. And the president has power to pardon her on these laws. What I was wanting to know is, us as Christian people, how are we to go and vote and support what we want and believe in if they're just going to pardon people and won't hold them accountable? I mean, I just don't understand how the voting process works if they're not going to hold their people accountable. And I'll just hang up and let you answer that.
Okay, thank you, Marvin, very much. I think this question is on the minds of a lot of people right now. People are wondering, okay, we've got Hillary Clinton. It's almost all of America believes that she has been dishonest many times. On the other hand, we've got Donald Trump, who uses foul language. He seems to be trying to lay off of that now, but still we know that he is not a model of Christianity either. So it leaves us looking at the situation. What should we do? First of all, we need to make sure we fully understand politics is not the answer to the problems of the world, nor do we depend on politicians to bring revival to us. There's a great revival prophesied for the future in the Bible, and it's going to happen, and no politician will stop it, and doesn't make any difference who's elected. However, there are times that God does raise up rulers that will do what he wants them to do. And so it's very important for us to realize that that does happen sometimes. And we have an example in the Old Testament where Cyrus was raised up by God, even though he was a heathen king, and he was raised up by God to help the Jewish people. And he decreed that the Jews could leave Babylon, go back to Israel and rebuild their temple. Well, that was ordained of God. As a matter of fact, Cyrus was actually prophesied by name in the scriptures, even though he was not a godly person himself. So that means that God can do this. Now that brings me to the focal point of what I want to say. To me, we have to look at the issues right now. And the issues are simply this. Are we for one world government or are we not? Right now, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama are for letting down all barriers. They've already done it. Let everybody come in. We want a world without borders. Hillary's already saying this is not time to build walls. This is time to build bridges. Whereas Donald Trump is saying, but if we don't enforce our borders, we don't have a country anymore. Well, there's a very powerful belief system in both the Republican and the Democratic parties that we need to move toward a system of one world government. The Council on Foreign Relations, which is very powerful in our nation, it's a private club, but it's very powerful, and they actually have a commission on global governance, and they're pushing every day to move us toward a system of world government because they believe that's the answer to peace on earth. Well, so here we have one candidate who's very much against moving toward a one world governmental system. He believes America needs to retain its sovereignty. And then we have Hillary Clinton, who's for the one world government. You know, there's been a lot said about the establishment during this campaign. If you want to know what that really means, the establishment had gained control of both the Republican and the Democratic Party, and they were all moving us toward a one world governmental system. And that's the reason that when Donald Trump came along, he is upsetting everybody because they want us to have a nation. They don't want us to be a Christian nation. Barack Obama boldly proclaimed America is not a Christian nation, even though our laws and our Constitution was all based on Christian principles. He has come along to do away with that, and he's declared we're not a Christian nation. Therefore, when Donald Trump says, wait, we've got to stop all these Muslim immigrants, they're coming in, not only possibly importing terrorism, but they're also bringing a whole new set of beliefs. They do not believe in our form of government. They believe in Sharia law, ultimately. Therefore, he said, we've got to stop all of this immigration until we can figure out what's going on. Well, when he said that, they started screaming prejudice and racism and everything else. Well, I believe God loves everybody, but at the same time, I do believe that there's a secret to America's exceptionalism, America's greatness, and that is the Judeo-Christian values that we have embraced for a long, long time. Those are all in danger right now with the Supreme Court ruling that same-sex marriage is okay. What they're doing, they're saying the Bible that the Jews and the Christians have believed in for years is a piece of trash. It means nothing. We don't believe it. We're smarter than God. We're smarter than the Bible. And therefore, that's what this election is really, that's the central key. There's a lot of side issues, but the central key is, are we for world government or are we not for world government? And that's the issue, I believe, on which this election will turn. So I know it's a little bit of a lengthy answer. Hope that helps someone know. Okay, Jim, I'll tell you what I want to do. Before we go to our next caller, we produced a DVD several years ago called World Government Forming Now. And we document in great detail how deep we truly are in world government already. It's not too late to reverse America's path, but it's close to being too late. TBN thought this was such an impacting DVD that they asked me permission, Paul Crouch, when he was still alive, asked if they could make it a TBN special, which they did, and our phones rang off the hook. If you have never seen World Government Forming Now, I really would recommend that you order that DVD and look at it because it will give you a lot of insight into the issues that nobody's talking about in this campaign, but it will help you to see things through the eyes of Bible prophecy. So the name of the DVD is World Government Forming Now, and you can call us at 800-ENDTIME, or you can go to endtime.com, and you can order it there as well. Okay, Jim, back to you.
All right, 1-877-END-TIME is our on-air number, 1-877-363-8463 if you want to talk to Irvin. Let's go now to Texas, and David, you're next up on End of the Age.
Hello, Irvin. I hope you have a great meeting up there in Indiana and over the weekend.
Well, thank you very much, David. I appreciate it.
But, Irvin, I just want to reiterate a couple of things that I found out recently regarding Islam and where they're putting their mosque when they go into other countries. And I found out a while back that the largest mosque in all of Europe, they put in Rome, Italy, sitting right next to the Vatican, apparently, on one of the 7 hills there. And I thought that was very interesting for the forthcoming end times scenario, that their largest mosque in Europe would be in Rome. I also found out just in the past couple of weeks from a program that the largest mosque in America, guess where? Washington, D.C. is the largest mosque, Islamic mosque in America. It seems like they're seeing the message around the world where they put their mosque to the lands they intend to take over with the Sharia law you just mentioned before. What do you think?
David, I'm looking at an article right now that I downloaded from Israel National News on the 14th of May, and the title of the article is Erdogan's Passion for Building Mosque in Europe. Of course, Erdogan is the head of Turkey right now, but it says since he took power in Turkey, Mr. Erdogan has built 17,000 Islamic prayer sites. And he goes on to say that he is committed to the construction of mosques in European capitals as well. Then they quote a statement by him. In the words of Erdogan, the minarets are our bayonets. The domes of our mosque are our helmets, and the mosque are our barracks. So that's where they go to train their fighters, and the minarets symbolize their bayonets to conquer the world. Right now in Europe, many of the churches are being converted to Islam because Christianity is so backslidden in Europe that the people won't attend anymore. Consequently, I have another statement in front of me. Turkey controls 900 mosques in Germany. Now, it's not just Turkey, however, because Saudi Arabia has been very ambitious to build mosques because they fully intend to infiltrate every nation, every society. One paragraph I'm looking at right now says to build these mosques at home as abroad, they have a budget of €2 billion. So that is a huge budget, and they're pushing the religious takeover of the world right now. Now, if the world awakens and is unwilling to let this happen, we're going to reach a point when there's going to be a direct clash, and that point may well be approaching us right now with the war along the Euphrates River. The Euphrates River is a 100% Islamic river, and yet Russia and the United States is encamped on either side of the Euphrates River, and the Bible prophesies a war will soon start from there. That will be a world war that will kill 1/3 of mankind. So you're absolutely right, David. It's something we should be concerned about. And one of the things we should do is not so much curse Islam as we need to stir up Christianity and get Christianity out of its backslidden state and have a true revival. If that would happen, these other things would not be happening.
Good to hear from him. Thank you.
Thank you, David, very much. And you brought up a really important point. We appreciate it. Let me see. I think we got time for one more. Jim, let's go.
Matt from Colorado, you're next up.
Hi, Irvin. Thanks for taking my call. And maybe this goes with the restoration of the church. I'm calling to ask about Gabriel's comments about the 70 weeks. So in verse 24 it starts, and then in verse 25 they introduce the Messiah as the Prince. And then my question is in verse 26. And after the 62 weeks, Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the Prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. The end of it shall be with a flood. So the people, the prince is, the saints, I'm assuming, and the prince is Jesus. So what is this flood? And how, what is going to be destroyed is the city and the sanctuary? And is it by the people? Am I understanding that correctly?
In my opinion, you're not. The prince that shall come there, the Bible says, the people of the prince that shall come will destroy the city and the sanctuary. Who destroyed the city and the sanctuary in 70 A.D.? It was the Romans.
Yeah.
And the Bible teaches that the Antichrist will rule over the reborn Holy Roman Empire. So the subject there, it says after the 483 years, after 7 weeks of years plus 62 weeks of years, then the Messiah will be cut off. He will come and be cut off. Well, that happened. Jesus came, and he was crucified. And then it says, and the people of the prince that shall come will destroy the city and the sanctuary. The prince that shall come is the Antichrist, because that's the direct antecedent to the he of verse number 27. Then it goes on to say, and he, the prince that shall come, will confirm the covenant with many for a 7-year period. And in the middle of that 7-year period, he'll cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abomination, he maketh it desolate. Who does the Bible say will stop the sacrifice and place the abomination of desolation?
And that's
2 chapters later.
Down to hell on earth.
Yeah, 2 chapters later, in chapter 11, it says the Antichrist will take away the daily sacrifice and place the abomination that maketh desolate. If you want to continue the discussion, hang on. We're up against the break right now. You're listening to End of the Age. It is open line. We do have some open lines. So if you want to be on with us, the number to call is 877-END-TIME.
Attention Jeffersonville, Indiana, Arlington, Texas, and Simsbury, Connecticut. Irvin Baxter's coming to your area for an End Time conference. He will be speaking on the subjects America's God-given destiny and breaking prophetic fulfillments. End Time conferences are a great opportunity to meet Irvin and hear the latest events going on in Bible prophecy. Shop End Time product and meet other people like you who are wanting to learn the prophecies of the Bible. Every time I go to an End Time conference, I feel so energized, like one of the people that can be strong and do exploits, as Daniel 11:32 says. Go to endtime.com and under events, click the conference link or call 1-800-END-TIME to find out more details about these conferences. We'll see you there.
The seeds of the Battle of Armageddon were sown on November 29th, 2012. The seeds sown on that historic day are in the process of producing a dreadful harvest. The Bible actually describes it as the harvest of Armageddon. Learn the story of what happened on November 29th, 2012, when the seeds were sown for the world's final battle, the growth of which are the events that will occur on the journey to where the story ends, at the reaping of the harvest of Armageddon. Call 1-800-END-TIME to order this important lesson.
If your radio station only carries the first 30 minutes of End of the Age, go to endtime.com and click the watch button to continue today's broadcast. You can also finish up later by clicking the archives button.
Welcome back to End of the Age. I am operating remotely by way of my phone, by the way, because we had a malfunction of our remote equipment. So I'm on the phone today. I hope it's not too laborious for you to listen to. I will be here in Jeffersonville, Indiana this evening for a very important prophecy conference. I'm speaking different parts of the United States and the world on the subject, America's God-given destiny. Now, I discovered the United States in the Bible many, many years ago, and everyone that hears it looks at it and says, it's so simple. Why didn't I see that before? Well, I'll be repeating that tonight, but only briefly. because I have not dealt previously with America's future in Bible prophecy. Even though America's in the Bible, yet we didn't know how everything was going to shape up. But it seems like new light has been coming to me from the Scripture, and I think you will agree when you hear this lesson. What's going to happen to America in these end times, which we're in right now? What's going to happen to the United States of America? Will we be a part of the one world government? Will the mark of the beast come to America? Will we forsake Israel and leave her all alone? Or will we continue our friendship with Israel? These are huge questions that all of us have because they're going to affect every single one of us. Will we face the mark of the beast in the United States or will we not? What is America's God-given destiny? I'll be speaking on that subject this evening in Jeffersonville, Indiana at Kai's Ballroom. That's KYE''S, Kai's Ballroom, 500 Missouri Avenue in Jeffersonville, Indiana. It will start at 7:30 this evening, sharp. Be there, and there's no admission charge. However, we will receive a free will offering to defray the expenses of the meeting, and if you would choose to give, you're welcome to do that, of course. Hope to see you there. It's going to be a great evening. Right now, I'm broadcasting from Jeffersonville. Jim Stiglman is anchoring our program back at our studios in Plano, Texas. So I want to get right back to the phones. Jim, back to you.
If you want to talk to Irvin today, it's 1-877-END-TIME, 1-877-ENDTIME. And let's start this segment out in Mississippi with Lindsay. You're next up.
Hey, Dr. Baxter, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you, Lindsay?
I'm great. I've been wanting to call in for a long time, so I'm really excited.
Well, thank you.
I am driving, so it's hard to hear, so I'm going to ask my question and try to explain it and then listen offline, if that's okay.
Okay, that'll be fine.
My question is about the sixth trumpet, but I'm kind of confused because of the interpretations from the first, second, and the third, and even the fourth trumpet. For example, the first trumpet, we've got the third of the trees that burn up, and then so on. The third of the sea turns to blood, and then, of course, the third one, which was the most interesting to me, the Chernobyl disaster, with a third of the waters that become wormwood. How is it that the sixth trumpet would be the whole world involved in a third of mankind, but yet the other four trumpets were for specific places, like, for instance, with Chernobyl? And that's
well, I think your question is good, Lindsay. Let me see if I can address it. Like you say, the third trumpet was the one I understood first. And I think God gave me supernatural help on that one because I didn't understand the trumpets, but I'd heard this rumor that the Russian word for wormwood was Chernobyl. Well, I was familiar with the Chernobyl nuclear accident that happened on April the 26th of 1986, but I shrugged it off because when you deal with Bible prophecy, you get a lot of wild theories, and so I just shrugged it off. However, this particular day, it was in 1995, I'll never forget it. I was alone in my office writing the manual for our Understanding the End Time series, and I had totally left out the seven trumpets because I didn't understand them. I thought it was something future that we couldn't yet understand, and so I had left it out of the Understanding the End Time series. However, as I'm sitting there, I felt like the Lord spoke to me and said, you know that rumor you heard that the Russian word for wormwood is Chernobyl? I want you to check that out. And I remember thinking to God, I'm behind on my deadlines. Everything's flowing good today. I don't have time to stop what I'm doing for the next 2 or 3 weeks and go research this. And I just sort of said that. I was all alone in my office. And I just sort of said that to God. And it was like he talked back to me, not audibly, but in my mind, talked back to me and said, you won't have to take a lot of time. If you'll call the library, they'll do the research for you. So in frustration almost, I pulled my drawer of my desk open and I dialed the library. And the lady, I said, ma'am, I've heard a rumor that the Russian word for wormwood is Chernobyl. Could you possibly research that for me to tell me whether it's true or not? She immediately said, it is true. because the Russians took wormwood for medicinal purposes. It turned their tongues black, and the Russian word for black is Chernin, and they began to call wormwood Chernobyl. And she gave me a lot of other information. I came to the conclusion that that was the meaning of the third trumpet. Well, if that was the case, then the first and second trumpet had to happen before that. I've reached the conclusion now that the second trumpet was World War II, that the first trumpet was World War I. Well, then I also believe the fifth trumpet is the Gulf War with Saddam Hussein, because it actually says the king over there is a person by the name of the destroyer. Well, the name Saddam in Arabic means destroyer. Well, once I decided that the fifth trumpet had sounded, then the next one was the sixth trumpet. And there it specifically says that by these was 1/3 part of mankind killed. When I looked at that, I said, surely not. 1/3 of mankind, that would be 2.4 billion people with our present population of 7 billion. So I said, surely not. But I did what I do sometimes to clarify things. I have multiple translations of the Bible on my computer. I can pull up 20 or 30 translations. And so that's what I did. I pulled up that particular scripture to see if perhaps I was misunderstanding it. Well, the next translation I looked at that said 1/3 of all human beings on earth will be killed. And every translation I read got worse, not better. And I decided that that's specifically what the Bible says. So I hope I'm answering you adequately, Lindsay, because I do believe that that prophecy specifically says that 1/3 of all the human beings on earth, that's one translation, by the way. Every translation I looked at says that, and that's the reason. Now, when it says 1/3 of the ships that were in the sea under the second trumpet, I just one day came to my mind, World War II was the worst war the world has ever known. And so I said to my research assistant, go to the library, find out how many ships participated in World War II and how many of them were sunk. She came back 3 or 4 days later. She said 105,127 ships participated in World War II, and 36,000 of them were sunk, almost 1/3 on the money. And when I saw it, I thought, oh, my goodness, look at this. So it specifically talks about those things. So your question, how do we know if this pertained to particular parts of the world, then how do we know that this pertains to the whole world? To the best of my ability, I have reached the conclusion that it does include the entire world. I would be very happy to be wrong on this, but all my research leads me to believe that it is talking about the entire world. That's probably the best that I can do for you, Lindsay, but it's a good question. Okay, I think Lindsay went ahead and hung up to listen, Jim, so let's go right on to our next caller.
All right, let's go now to New Jersey, and Steve, you're next up on End of the Age.
Hi, Brother Baxter. It's actually Phil in New Jersey. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you very much.
Excellent. So as you know, I've been through the 14 DVDs, End of the Age, and for anybody who hasn't, I recommend they go through it. I know, we believe that the 10-nation alliance will come up through the European Holy Roman Empire, and the Antichrist will uproot 3 nations. And my question/comment to you, and you may not have an answer right now, but are you, Brother Baxter, aware of the United Nations plan in writing to where they have a goal of 10 super nations consolidating certain continents and large geographic regions, and specifically 10 United Nations goal of supra-nations. And if you are aware of that, or if you aren't aware of that, maybe you could comment now or at a future time, how would that potentially impact, if at all, could that be the 10-nation alliance that's prophesied to come out of the European Holy Roman Empire? I find it eerily in alignment with, with what we know. And I wanted to throw that out there and get your feedback on that today, or at least call your attention to it. Maybe you could research it and let that marinate and comment at a future time.
Yeah, actually, I already know about it. I read about that many years ago, I think way back in the late 70s. There was a book published by the Club of Rome called Mankind at the Turning Point. And in that book, they had a map of the entire world, and they had the world divided up into 10 regions. And, of course, it immediately caught my attention because the Bible prophesies that there will be a 10-nation union that will support the Antichrist, or at least 10 kings who will support the Antichrist. So I went to investigate. I have reached the conclusion that this cannot be the 10-horn kingdom of Daniel chapter number 7, verse number 7 and 8. And also of Revelation 17, it mentions that 10-nation alliance again. It says these 10 horns are 10 kings that will give their power as kings to the Antichrist, to the beast, for a very short period of time. Now, here's the reason that I do not believe that that's where the 10-nation alliance. I do believe there's a 10-nation alliance coming, but I believe it has to come out of Europe, because the Bible teaches that it will be this 10-nation kingdom. And when you go to Daniel 2, verse 42 through 44, it paints a picture of the final toes. There's Daniel's image representing all the world-dominating nations from the time of Nebuchadnezzar in 600 BC until the second coming of Jesus. And the feet of iron mingled with clay represent the Holy Roman Empire. The legs of iron represent the Roman Empire. The feet represent the Holy Roman Empire. And then it specifically talks about the 10 toes, the very last of this statue that spans 2,600 years. The very last is the 10 toes. And it says concerning the 10 toes in verse 44, and in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom that will never pass away and never be destroyed. So the point is that since the 10 toes are of iron mingled with clay, they have to come out of the Holy Roman Empire. And then when you see the combo beast that is the kingdom of the Antichrist in Revelation 13, you have several elements. You have the body.
Okay, got it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, appreciate it so much. And we are up against the break. Apparently I got that answer to satisfaction. Stay with us. We have open lines. 800 times the number to call to reach our operators.
This is actually a depiction of the false prophet. The Bible teaches us there are two rulers in the end time, a political leader and a spiritual leader. The political leader will head the one world government. The spiritual leader will head the one world religious system. Well, this is that man. He's going to look like a Christian. He actually is going to be the world's leading Christian. But yet, he will speak so deceptively that the world will obey him. But the fact is, they will be obeying the master plan of the dragon. That's the reason we need more than a surface knowledge of God's word in these days in which we live. We better know what we believe. We need to get our Bibles off the shelf and start reading them, because it's God's word that will keep us from going into apostasy and into error. One more thing we need to notice while we're here with this second beast. The Bible says he causeth the world to follow the first beast. He is going to endorse the one world government. He's going to tell all the people of the world, this is a good thing. You should follow this man. This man is leading us to peace. But don't you believe it, because it's really the master plan of the dragon.
Call 1-800-END-TIME to order this important lesson.
Welcome back to the final segment of End of the Age. This is Open Line, so we're taking your calls, attempting to answer your questions. We do have some open lines right now, so the number to call to be on the air with Jeff Stickleman and myself, 877-END-TIME. That's 877-363-8463. I mentioned earlier in the program our DVD, World Government Forming Now. And if you've not seen that, you owe it to yourself to see it. This is not part of our 14 DVD series called Understand the End Time. This is a supplemental lesson, and I really recommend that you would get that for yourself. Also, our brand new magazine is out. We deal extensively with a national ID. America has resisted a national ID since we were founded. For 240 years, we've said no. Many people have tried to bring it up because politicians who think they should control the people instead of the people controlling the politicians, they want very much a national ID because once they get one in place, they can then build a database with your name in it, and then they can start recording all the information about you because everything you do, you would need this national ID. Now, all of us know that we're moving closer and closer to that. Well, there is one scheduled to be fully implemented in about 3 years. By October the 1st of 2020, every person in America will have to have a national ID, or else you will not be able to fly on a plane, you will not be able to enter a federal building, you will undoubtedly require it for the opening of a bank account. They want to track each of us, and if they track us, then they will be able to control us. So anyway, we have devoted this magazine to the national ID that we're on the brink of having implemented after 240 years of resistance. We tell you all about it. And oh, by the way, really pray about this edition. We've sent a copy to every senator, every congressman, every U.S. senator, every U.S. congressman. And we are hoping that it will hit, and it's hitting right now. If you're not a subscriber to End Time Magazine, I really encourage you to do that. Get on the phone and call us at 1-800-END-TIME for 2 years. It's $29, so it's almost nothing just to cover some of our expenses. But if you're not yet a subscriber to End Time, let me tell you, we're in the End Time right now, and if there's one magazine, one that you should subscribe to, it should certainly be End Time Magazine. So the number to do that, 1-800-END-TIME for World Government Forming Now, or a subscription to End Time Magazine. Now then, we're going to go right back to the phones. Jim, back to you.
All right, 1-877-END-TIME is our on-air number, 1-877-363-8463. Let's go now to Texas. And Pat, you're next up.
Hi, Irvin.
Hello, Pat.
Can you hear me okay?
I sure do.
Oh, I appreciate you for stopping that national ID. And you just remember, people, that was what stopped Hillary's health care plan. Nobody would take the national ID. So if you want to put it in, look for it. But I wanted to tell you that the Lord told me about Chernobyl 2 years before it happened. He didn't use the word, I didn't know, more. But the night before it happened, that morning, he put me on a fast, and he said, take nothing but math except coffee. And I had to obey God, but I thought, well, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die because the doctor says I have, this heart condition and that threw me in. But you can't pick and choose to believe to do what God says. So that week, those 2 weeks were amazing. But he gave me a scripture that morning also. He gave me Isaiah 40, and he paused and said 2. So I didn't know if it was, verse 2 or all the way to 40 to 42. So I had to get the car brakes checked that night. I met a guy there, and I used to know it. He was putting his hands through his hair, and he was saying, what are we going to do with a Khrushchev on it with his finger on the button and Reagan with his finger on the button? I said, they're not in charge. And I took my Bible because I was going to go to the hospital and read to my friend. And I read him the whole Isaiah 40. And there's one there that says, I sit on the ring of the earth, and men are as grass that withers. So we can't forget that, when we hear about all this stuff. So 2 years before he had said, get the TV down, the whole story's not being told. And I think it was Passover that it blew up on, right? And I remember
it was April the 26th. I'm not sure whether that was Passover or not that year, but it was April the 26th of 1986.
Oh, I'm having trouble hearing you, but what happened? He said, "See which way the wind blows," and what happened was it picked up the radiation from Chernobyl and blew it to Sweden, and it turned back and blew it right back to the Ukraine, you know. And I knew what how Sweden was. I mean, there's a book called Take Back the Night where the women turned over all their rights, not just rights, but their respect to pornography and abortion and all these things. And so I called a Russian ambassador, and actually I tried to call Olaf Palm, but I didn't know his dad. I got his office, and they said, this is his secretary. And I said, well, God told me about this 2 years earlier. If you tell a housewife something like that, I'm sure there are other people who just won't do it to call you. But God was in this. And you need to turn your country back, like Reagan's trying to turn us back to God. You know, God home in this country. The country was its motto. And then I called the Russian ambassador who was going to apologize to Sweden. And the news said he changed his mind. Well, you know, I've heard that they actually have the Bible in Russia now in school. Yeah. And I know they don't care for gays at the Olympics. They didn't. They said, well, you can come, but don't be proselytizing our children. So if we can't be more morally right than Russia, they might get us this time.
Yeah, well,
I think it took them down,
right,
don't you?
Listen,
Chernobyl took Russia down.
Pat, I'm running out of time, so I'm going to have to let you go, but I thank you for the information. And I want to tell everybody out there that's listening, the Chernobyl nuclear explosion, the world's worst nuclear accident, has a very special meaning for me because I felt like God allowed me to understand that was, in fact, the third trumpet of Revelation chapter number 8. Well, after I'd already reached that conclusion, put out a DVD about it, I picked up Time magazine one day, and it was on the anniversary of the explosion. And President Medvedev, who was in office in Russia at that particular time, went to Chernobyl that day in order to hold an honoring ceremony for all the people who gave their lives there fighting the fire. And what I saw in the background, which nobody said anything about, but I saw a picture in the background of the picture of Medvedev there on site, and I could not believe my eyes. It was a picture of an angel blowing a trumpet. Well, I investigated and found out that someone had erected a statue at Chernobyl, a statue of an angel blowing a trumpet. Well, the third trumpet shows an angel blowing the third trumpet. And when I saw it, I could not believe. I don't know how they found out. As far as I knew, I was the only person in the world that was teaching at that time that Chernobyl was the sounding of the third trumpet. And I don't know whether someone heard our teaching or whether God showed someone else. I don't know what it was. But I was so amazed when I saw the picture of the angel blowing the trumpet on site at Chernobyl. And since then, we have produced that picture in some of our DVDs and in some of our articles because I felt like it was so amazing that everyone had a right to hear about it. Well, there is so much going on in the world right now. Over the last couple of weeks, major things have happened in Israel. Yehuda Glick, who is the number one campaigner for the rebuilding of the Jewish temple and also for the sharing of the Temple Mount. He now has become a member of the Israeli government because of resignations. No one thought he would ever become a member because he was 33rd on the Likud list, but a few of them dropped off, and consequently he is now in the government pushing his opinion that the Temple Mount should be shared. Everybody should be able to worship there, and that Israel should ultimately be able to build their temple there. Well, the reason that's so significant is because the Bible clearly teaches that the Temple Mount is going to be shared. Revelation chapter number 11, verse 1 and 2 specifically says that, and also that there will be a temple built on the Temple Mount. Well, Yehuda Glick, that's exactly what he believes, and now he is in the Israeli Knesset preaching that message, and it's ultimately going to happen. So here we see a prophecy that's 2,000 years old, and yet within the last 2 weeks, the champion of that particular cause has now become a part of the Israeli government. So many things are converging right now, pushing us toward the peace agreement, of which the sharing of the Temple Mount and the building of the temple will be part of that peace agreement. So we live in amazing, incredible times, and all of us should realize it. Ladies and gentlemen, as we're coming to a close today, let me talk to you for a moment. Now, I understand that it looks like evil is rampant in our world. I mean, we've got the government now coming down the side of same-sex marriage, and now they're trying to say that boys can say they're a girl and they can walk into the girls' restroom, the girls' showers, and vice versa. And it's like, is this whole world gone absolutely nuts? I mean, if you have any common sense at all, but yet our president is pushing this to the max. And I'm just saying, I never thought I would see such insanity as what we're witnessing right now. I mean, when I was a little kid, if I had said, oh, I'm going to go in the girls' restroom because I'm now a girl, well, they'd take me down to the office and warn me out and knock some sense into me. But, of course, that's not even possible in this present society, since we no longer believe the Bible anyway. But all I'm saying is we're watching all these things converge right now, and there should be a holy zeal sees us as Christians to reach this world in the very short time we have left. And that's what we're trying to do at Endtime Ministries. We would like to request that you join us. If every partner would go out and find another partner, then we could double our efforts by twice as much television time, twice as much radio time, reach the world. It is so critical. So if you're not yet a partner with Endtime Ministries, please do it today. The number to call, 1-800-END-TIME, 1-800-363-8463. God bless you. We'll see you Monday.
End of the Age is a production of Endtime Ministries. This broadcast will be available on our website, endtime.com, in the archives section. On our website, you'll also find more information about how current events are fulfilling Bible prophecy. To reach our operators, call 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463. Endtime Ministries is partner supported. We would like to say thank you to our partners who made this broadcast possible. To do what Matthew 24:14 said, to reach the world with the gospel of the kingdom.